welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm excited to be back with a new video, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the up-and-coming summer solstice and Cancer season for 2025. So if you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear some of your guys' ritual ideas and traditions for the solstice. Also, any engagement with the channel really helps. So leaving a comment or subscribing or liking the video, even sharing on your socials would be super helpful to see the channel grow. And while you're at it, follow me on X at BTV Astro for some of my postings and astro musings. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Well, guys, I'm excited to be back. Obviously, we know that the solstice and the equinox points happen a couple times a year, and it's a very, very powerful moment for like a reset, okay? And it's happening actually on June the 20th. So I know a lot of you guys are watching this on the 17th, 18th, 19th. Wanted to put this out a little bit early, kind of talk a little bit about what the next 3 months looks like based off of this chart. And we know that obviously it's a reset point, right? We're seeing planets ingressing into the 0 degree sign of Cancer. So this is a time of renewal, but it's also about connection and setting intentions for the next 3 months. So we're really taking a look at the sun's ingress into this sign on the 20th. Obviously, you guys know here in the Northern Hemisphere, we affectionately refer to this as the first day of summer. I know it's kind of opposite in other parts of the world. But on the 20th, this is going to mark the longest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is a moment where we celebrate light, abundance, and emotional growth. So in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the significance of this time. I'm also going to talk to you guys about why it's important to set intentions, how to use this astrological time really to plan for the next couple of months, why the future looks bright, and I'm going to break down the chart aspects. And hopefully give you guys some ritual ideas and how to kind of align with this energy with all these planets moving through the sign of Cancer. All right, so first we're going to start talking about the significance of the summer solstice and Cancer season. So the solstice and equinox points are always very potent times, and this is when we see the sun ingressing into 0 degrees of one of the cardinal signs. The last we saw was happening during the true astrological New Year period in March of 2025 when the sun moved into Aries. But now we're going into the 4th sign of the zodiac, Cancer, which is cardinal water, ruled by the moon. So this summer solstice, like I said, here in the Northern Hemisphere, is kind of like a sacred turning point. And this is where we see the sun enter into that 0 degrees, and it's a moment of balance between light and dark. So this is all about action as well as reflection. So that's something that you want to kind of think about for the next couple of months. I feel like that theme is also very much kind of embedded in some of the astrology with some of the squares that we see to Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which is very much about action, where Cancer is more about emotions and feelings. Now, Cancer is a water sign, like I said, ruled by the moon, and this is a sign that's all about home, family, and emotional security, as well as nurturing our inner world. So even if Cancer isn't the 4th house for you in your natal chart, it's going to represent really your intuition, feeling safe or feeling secure in this particular area of your chart. So you're going to have to look at where Cancer is in your horoscope to see where that new energy is kind of coming in. But in a nutshell, this season really invites us to connect deeply to our heart space. And it's also about our loved ones and our sense of belonging. So it's really a time to honor what makes us feel safe and supported, and it's all about planting new seeds for emotional growth. It's interesting, this is also happening right before we come into what will be a June 25th new moon in Cancer. If you guys haven't seen that video, check it out. I talk about why I think this is one of the more potent and positive kind of new moons all year long. But we see a lot of similar aspects that are kind of coming through the solstice chart as well. So that's going to be beautiful to see that kind of play out for the next 3 months. And I really feel like this is a time where the solstice is going to be amplifying that sun's kind of peak light energy. And it's about encouraging us to kind of shine bright from within, because Cancer can represent kind of like what's going on internally or emotionally. And it really highlights vulnerability and strength. Now, I think the key points that I really want to make is that this is a celebration of light. So because this is the longest day, it's symbolizing kind of abundance, vitality, as well as clarity. And it's a time to really honor our inner light and share it with other people. This can mean that you're also kind of shining a light between now and the new moon in Cancer, and really all year with Jupiter in Cancer in that particular house in your horoscope. Now, remember that Cancer's energy does focus on home and family, but it also has a deep tie to self-care, emotional healing, as well as creating a cozy, safe space, whether that's in your home or in your heart. And this is a turning point. So because this is where the wheel of the astrological kind of axis turns, this solstice is really marking like a new cycle that's beginning, and it's perfect for setting intentions that align with your emotional truth. Jupiter being there all year is going to magnify that. Some of the squares to Saturn and Neptune and Aries is going to put the pressure on us to pay attention to our intuition as well as our emotions. Now, I think for setting intentions for Cancer season, it's interesting. Yes, Cancer season is what kicks off with the sun's ingress into Cancer, but really this is going to take us all the way until Libra season. So by the time we're getting into September of 2025, when the sun moves into Libra, this is really the setup for Cancer season, Leo season, and Virgo season. So it's going to be the next couple of months. It's not just this particular month. So something you want to think about is that we set intentions, we activate those intentions through Cancer, because Cancer is a cardinal sign, so it knows that it needs to take action emotionally. Well, in order to kind of really work with, I think this energy, the best way is going to be reflecting on your needs. So something that you guys can do is you can kind of sit quietly the days revolving around the solstice. That'll be like the PM hours. I'm here Central Time, so it's going to be around 9:45 p.m. June 21st. But you guys can do this anytime, I think, really on June 20th or even on the 21st, depending on where you guys are. You're going to have to adjust your time zones. And sit with yourself and ask yourself, what makes you feel safe? Jupiter being in this sign is all about kind of expanding and leaning into, the internal wisdom that comes from the sign of Cancer, our moods, what's gone on with our past, how we can kind of connect to our inner world. And Mercury is there as well. So it's very cerebral. It's a lot about communication, journaling, writing, meditating, all that stuff, even divination. So take some time to sit and ask yourself, what makes you feel safe? What makes you feel loved and supported? And I would really recommend journaling about your emotional desires. I think this is going to set the stage for helping you kind of take some necessary action emotionally to really make the most of what I feel like is a very beautiful solstice chart. Now, it might mean that you're manifesting or you're kind of recognizing or realizing that you need stronger family connections, maybe that you need a more peaceful home, maybe you feel like you need to focus more on self-love. Whatever it is, lean into that emotionally. Something else that you can also do, because Jupiter is in this sign, which represents wisdom, abundance, and growth, we also see that Venus is in her home sign of Taurus, as is the moon, which is the dispositor of the solstice Sun-Jupiter point. This is a lot about abundance. There is a lot of opportunity for growth and abundance over the next 3 months. So another thing that you guys can do during the solstice is you can imagine, when it comes to your intentions, them coming to life, them being planted, being sprouted, and then kind of growing. And you want to kind of visualize either with seeds, or you want to see something with like light or something that's kind of beaming and making things grow. And it can also mean that you're visualizing warmth, or you're visualizing sunshine, or anything revolving around something being nurtured and kind of growing and coming into life. So I would recommend doing that. You can do an abundance visualization ritual. You can write your intentions down. However, I would recommend writing them down in the present tense, especially with some of these aspects that we're seeing to Saturn and Neptune and Aries, which really demands us to be present and clear with where we are right now. And the emotions, obviously, that will kind of come up with that. But write down your intentions. And I would write it down like, I am creating a home filled with love, or I nurture my emotional well-being daily. The I am aspect is so incredibly important, especially because it's mind over matter with aspects that we see between Mercury and Cancer, where we're tapping into our intuition, our emotions, putting logic to work with the North Node in Pisces, where we manifest. This is a very powerful manifestation solstice point. And then also take inspired action. We've got a lot of cardinal energy that's kind of baked into this chart, which for a lot of people can feel a little overwhelming. But we want to use this as an opportunity to kind of fuel what we're going to be initiating and starting, and it can give us a little bit more pep in our step for the next couple of months. So when I say take inspired action, Cancer really loves small, meaningful steps. It likes to kind of take its time. It likes to play it safe. So for many of you guys, this might be something as simple as, like lighting a candle, creating a vision board, even having a heart-to-heart with somebody around the time of the solstice. And this is really about focusing on trust and anchoring your intentions and doing a little bit every day. You guys will be surprised if you take small steps forward during Cancer season, how much you're able to accomplish and get done, and how much you're able to grow physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually. There's a lot of growth that's kind of baked into this chart. So focus on trusting your intuition, focus on fostering emotional security, creativity, connection, and definitely the whole intuitive side of Cancer, I feel like really is the superpower that is coming through with the solstice chart. Now, remember that any intentions that you set, they should feel very personal. They may feel very private to you, and it can also be something that's very heart-centered. I would really recommend using some of these visualization or small rituals to make them feel real, because making your dreams a reality with this Saturn-Neptune square is definitely a huge theme. It's not just about the emotions, it's about actually putting some of those intentions to action. And I would say revisit some of these intentions potentially around the new moon in Cancer that we're going to have closer to the 25th, just a couple days later. You may also revisit some of these intentions around the time that we're going to have the full moon in Cancer, which will be taking place closer to mid-January of 2026, to see how much your intentions have grown. All right, so let's take a look at the solstice chart. So on June 20th, 2025, we're going to see the sun enter into 0 degrees of Cancer. So that means that this is the marker point that we're going to be looking at for the next 90 days. Now, the sun is in Cancer, which is the marker of the solstice, but because it is Cancer season, something else we want to think about is, where is the moon, right? What is the moon doing? Not only because we want to see aspects between the moon and the sun, ideally, but we want to see, how is the moon placed? How is it situated? What's kind of going on with the chart? First thing that I look at off the bat that I find very interesting is that we see some planets in places that are making some definitive aspects to some big players, okay? So I can see, aspects between Pluto, I can see aspects between Saturn and Neptune, I can see aspects between Jupiter, I can see aspects with Mars. Probably the bigger ones are going to be Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, maybe Uranus, Jupiter, but still there's something kind of going on with all of these planets. And most all of these planets are at either 0 or like 28, 29 degrees, 0 to 1 degree, 29 to 0 degrees. So you guys get what I'm saying. We're either seeing the beginning or we're seeing the end of certain cycles. That's just something to kind of take into consideration. So we've got things that are starting, we've got things that are ending. In theory, though, the Cancer season is about initiating new things. So I don't necessarily think this is a period of closure. I think this is a period of growth and new things that are kind of getting planted. But we've got the sun in conjunction to Jupiter, okay? We've also got the moon in Taurus. So seeing an exalted Jupiter in Cancer, where it's going to do its best work in terms of growth, abundance, nurturing intuition, new developments for home countries, homeland, home property, families, and real estate, pretty good. We've also got the moon that is in its exaltation in Taurus, and it's exactly sextiling the sun. Even if I look at nothing else in this chart, the fact that we've got an exalted moon and we've got an exalted Jupiter conjunct the sun tells me that there are really good things that are going to be coming over the next 3 months. I'm pretty optimistic about what's kind of coming. But focusing on the sun-Jupiter conjunction, you go back 12 years ago when we had Jupiter in Cancer. If you look at the transits that were kind of going on that summer, we got snaked. We did not get to see the sun conjunct Jupiter in Cancer. It actually happened in Gemini. So we have not seen the sun-Jupiter conjunction probably in what it has been almost 2 cycles. So we might go back to like 24 years ago. I have to look at the chart, but I would assume there was a conjunction that happened then. But it's been some time since we've seen the sun-Jupiter conjunction. Which is going to make some of the manifestations and some of the new beginnings that are kind of taking place, I think, all that much bigger for not just the next 3 months, but for the next 12 years, guys, for the next 12 years. So just something to think about there. A lot of astrologers kind of tout this as the luckiest day of the year, the sun conjunct Jupiter. This will actually be happening a couple days later, closer to the new moon. I think it's going to be on the 24th of June, where the sun and Jupiter will conjunct at 3 degrees. But it's kind of baked into the solstice chart, so it's close enough. It's within a 2-degree orb. And this particular conjunction is big, beautiful energy, okay? So especially if you happen to have any planets between 0 to I would say 5 degrees of Cancer, This is really big for you. Even if it's not a conjunct a personal planet, it could be conjunct an angle, it could be conjunct the North Node, it can be conjunct progressed planets, anything like that. If you guys are looking at progressions and stuff, something to think about. I would say this is also really big for Jupiter ruled charts. So Sagittarius and Pisces rising, this is going to be a big turning point for you guys. But everybody collectively benefits from this Sun-Jupiter conjunction. It means that there is going to be some kind of optimism, some kind of growth, something that is being seeded. And this is all about amplifying optimism. It's also about emotional generosity and really expanding our sense of home and family, feeling at home in a certain situation. So once again, you have to look at what house this is in for you. Cancer is going to be about coming home to yourself in this area, tuning into it more, being a little bit more comfortable, and maybe being a little bit more kind of optimistic about what new things are coming through that part of your chart. This is about a desire to expand. So I would say with this conjunction, the next 3 months is saying it's time to really dream big about what nurtures you, what feels like a cozy home base, how can you deepen emotions and relationships, how can you focus on the joy and positivity in life. However, something to think about is being mindful not to overextend yourself emotionally. We got to balance give with self-care. And that also kind of comes through with some of the aspects that you'll see to Saturn and Neptune, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, the second thing we're going to look at, because obviously it's Cancer season, is we've got to look at the moon. And the luminaries are always going to be important in any chart, whether you're looking at like a natal chart or you're looking at a solstice, an equinox, an event chart. Exactly, the moon sextiles the sun. Now, this is the last nice aspect we're going to see before we come into what will be the new moon in Cancer. So a sextile is a friendly angle, obviously. This is a harmonious aspect, and with the moon being in its exaltation and the sun-Jupiter being conjunct, pretty darn good. I think that this is kind of bringing a very grounded, sensual vibe with the moon in Taurus. That moon is encouraging stability. It's also about comfort and enjoying life's simple pleasures. So it could be things like good food, nature, cooking, financial things, pleasure-related things. And it's really supporting building a strong foundation to your Cancer intentions that you're setting. And it's about making it easier to manifest emotional security. Now, this is a sextile that is a setup for the incoming new moon, okay, that we'll see closer to the 25th. So my interpretation looking at this is like, well, it's a nice aspect, but it can be saying that there are some things that are kind of being closed out or getting wrapped up when it comes to Taurus-related matters. Food, money, resources, banking, financial systems, agricultural themes, stuff connected to the planet, any of that stuff. And it can mean at 0 degrees, okay, that it's not often that we see an exact sextile between the dispositor of the solstice in its exaltation in an exact sextile. I think the silver lining here, quite literally with Cancer, means that whatever new things that are starting, whatever new things that are being built, whatever new physical, financial opportunities kind of come about, it may come out from closing certain things out, from getting rid of certain things, from clearing things, from selling things, and there can be some changes or some downturns that we can see in certain markets that can actually provide further optimism and people being like, hey, I think I have an opportunity to move, buy a house, start a family, what have you. So likely what we might see with this aspect with both the sun and the moon being at 0 degrees is that we're going to see over the next 3 months new physical, financial, funding opportunities, building opportunities, traveling opportunities, that kind of stuff. And maybe it means that people are going to be a little bit more optimistic when it comes to their home or housing market, kind of themes. So I'd be curious to see how this affects property and real estate. Now, we do see Mercury also in Cancer, so we know that Sun and Jupiter are there, so we feel very optimistic. But when it comes to the mind, communication, trade, business, systems, Mercury in Cancer is very much about connecting intellect and emotions. And we know sometimes those don't always mix. There can be a sense of really wanting to focus on data, information, things that are fact-related when we look at Mercury. But when it's in Cancer, it's going to be more about expressing and communicating our emotions. It's not as definitive maybe as being in Gemini or being in Virgo. It's going to be more based off of where our mood is at. So once again, that moon being the ruler of Mercury means that there's going to be lots of talk and communication and focus on business and transactions and changes and organizations and communication and things going on with home and family. We may see many people move, relocate. We might see many people reorganize their home, refinance their home. We could definitely see some people that are also going to be focusing on new aesthetic changes or more focus when it comes to home and family communications. Taurus is also about agriculture. So I do think this could be a lot of people who are really focused on having a closer relationship to land, and whether that's like gardening or it's going to be, really kind of getting connected to their culture, certain like language, research, studies, anything connected to family lineage. That can be a huge focus as well. And we do see Mercury as the ruler of the South Node. And what's interesting is it sextiles the South Node and it trines the North Node. So it's in some pretty great aspects, if you ask me. Essentially, communication here gets kind of dreamy, and we get a little bit of an intuitive boost. So Mercury in Cancer, it is going to help us speak with our heart. And the trine of the North Node in Pisces is encouraging spiritual growth and also trusting our inner guidance. This can mean how to navigate family matters, how to communicate better with relatives, how to organize your home, where you're moving, how to kind of create better systems for your home. And it's a great time for creative expression as well as journaling or sharing your feelings with loved ones. So it can improve communication and really help us kind of get the point across with the people that we're living closest to or with. Now, that sextile to the South Node is also saying that it can help us organize, declutter, change our schedules, reorganize home offices, focus on creating fitness spaces. It can also help us make changes revolving around how we organize, clean, and maintain our home or property. And in a way, kind of like taking care of the home can become like a family affair. So I look at this and I'm like, it's got very like spring clean vibes, but it's summertime. So if you didn't quite get to your spring cleaning, you have an opportunity to like really clean out the kitchen, the cupboards, all the shelves, closets, anything revolving around junk rooms, extra spaces, and get your home in order. I think this is a wonderful time to do that, especially with some of the aspects that you're going to see involving planets in Aries as well as Virgo. Now, on the topic of that, we see the moon in Taurus, is trining Mars in Virgo. Love this aspect, super grounded, especially with all of this water that we kind of have in Cancer. I feel like the Taurus aspects really kind of smooth things out. But the moon in Taurus coming into a trine with Mars in Virgo is a very earthy, kind of grounded, practical vibe. So this is going to be great for productive energy. I feel like Mars in Virgo is very detail oriented. It's really about action driven. And it really helps you take small intentional steps towards your goals. Mars in Virgo can be things like looking for a new job, getting back to the gym, focusing on health and habits, productivity, or just feeling like you're checking things off of your to-do list. So I feel like with that moon in Taurus, it's really, I think, helpful because it adds patience. It also adds persistence and really makes this a great time to organize your home and your routines to support your emotional well-being. But also, Taurus is a sign that's about money as well as pleasure and resources. Virgo is about help and assistance. So if you're wanting to get a better grip on your budget, right, this would be a great kind of time to get the show on the road with that. If you're wanting to hire somebody to help you with like tax preparation for this next year, if you're wanting to bring in like new systems or organize new things connected to your business or your home office, and anything revolving around streamlining food and like productivity. Like I look at this and I'm like, oh, people who are like, I really want to start food prepping and going to the gym. This is a great time to be like, I'm going to get the show on the road, start doing this. People who are serious about creating a budget and sticking to it, good time to start doing it. Also, if you're looking to like find new ways, I think to like make money and bring in like resources and feel like you can bring in a second job or a side hustle of some kind, this is a good time to start doing it. Now, we are going to see, in terms of some of the challenging aspects, there are a few, obviously. Many of you guys know Saturn and Neptune are in Aries, and we're already starting to get previews of what is to come in 2026 when we see that conjunction at 0 degrees, which I want to remind you guys, that's a very potent degree. So 0 of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, these are the world access points. So traditionally, when we see a planet sitting at this degree, we see big things happen. And 0 degrees means it's like the purest form of that energy. We have to wait till it gets to about 1, 2, 3 degrees to really see what's going to manifest. So things initiate under these degrees. Anyway, we do see that the Sun and Jupiter are in a square to both Saturn as well as Neptune in Aries. We've got Saturn at 1 degree, Neptune at 2. Now, thank goddess, Jupiter is now out of this square. So by the time we get to the 20th, Jupiter is no longer squaring Saturn. We've felt the expansion and contraction. We're over it. We've also just recently seen Jupiter square Neptune. There's been a lot of like, are we delusional or are we hopelessly, optimistic? Are we seeing things clearly? There's a lot of like, I feel this last like week or two needing to pace ourselves and not counting our chickens before they hatch and not like leaping into something quite yet. Anyway, the point is that some of this energy, because both of these by about a degree or two are still square Saturn and Neptune, there is tension. You guys probably saw my video where I was like, look, Saturn's in the superior position, raining down and saying, hey, I'm going to dictate how much Jupiter can grow. However, Jupiter is in a stronger sign in terms of its dignity. So it has strength and it can kind of uphold or I guess kind of withstand some of the tension both from Saturn as well as Neptune. So it's breaking away. This is kind of sprinkles of the next 3 months. That's like, okay, if you really think you know what direction you're going in, if you really are committed, if you're serious, if you're going to show up, and if you have a solid plan, yes, now we can see just exactly how much you can grow. But consistency is the key. Now, with this square that we're going to see, obviously, it brings a bit of a reality check. Anytime we see squares to Saturn, it feels like stop signs, delays, a lot of heavy work, and a lot of heavy lifting. Neptune creates a little bit of confusion as well. So with these two planets, Saturn and Neptune being in Aries, there is this push for like bold dreams and inspired action. And they're clashing with the Sun and Jupiter's more emotional expansiveness. So we can't just go through the physical motions and be like, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to push through this. We also have to take into consideration what these new intentions, what these new goals, this new vision for our life, how does that impact us emotionally? How does that also make us more aware of what changes we need to make on the home front, or when it comes to our families, or with our private life, or where do we have to confront the past to better imagine the future? So all of these things kind of come up for us, collectively. I think many of us might feel a little torn between our need for security, Cancer, as well as the push to take risks, Aries. And we want to use this tension, I think, to create a little bit of grit. We want to use this tension to set boundaries and dream realistically and find balance between, I think, our heart as well as our ambition. Easier said than done. I don't know about you guys, but I'm already kind of feeling some of this stuff, and it's hitting all of my angles. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna see what I can get done in both of these areas of my chart. But you guys will have to let me know how this is manifesting for you, especially if you guys have planets in like the early degrees of the cardinal signs. I'd love to hear. Now, more on that moon in Taurus. The moon in Taurus is, although it's making some really nice aspects to the Sun, Jupiter, and trining Mars, it is not so friendly with Pluto, and it's within about a 2.5, 3 degree square of Pluto, okay? So we know Pluto is like the big bad wolf in astrology. He means well, but whenever we see the moon square Pluto, this is going to stir up some emotions. This is going to stir up some need for major transformation. The moon in Taurus craves stability, okay? And the moon is very important in this chart because it rules all these planets down here, and equally, it is very much connected to Cancer season. So with the moon in Taurus, wanting stability, wanting to take its time, wanting pleasure, and in that hard angle to Pluto, there is a clash for change and collective progress. We might feel like we're facing power struggles or the need to release old, emotional patterns. This is about embracing change as a way to grow stronger roots. Even in spite of that square, I feel like we can overcome it with some of the sextiles and some of the trines, especially the trine to Mars is just kind of like, yes, there is some pressure to make some change. Moon's fastest moving planet. When it comes to our physical, kind of world, when it comes to our resources, when it comes to land, when it comes to food, when it comes to money, and some of the things that are going to be changing, it might be bringing up what feels like a crisis for the collective, but it also brings new opportunities for some. So it's about whether or not we're kind of opening up to that. Now, another aspect that we see, we do have Mars that is in Virgo, and it is also making some aspects. It's in a sextile to the Sun and Jupiter in Cancer. And you see it's kind of baked into the new moon chart as well, where it's like, okay, we can really kind of lean on Mars and see this as a supportive kind of aspect where it's fueling our new intentions and desires. And it's giving us something tangible and real when it comes to, productive action. So Mars in Virgo, it can help us refine routines and take practical steps forward, in Cancer season to help you kind of focus on your goals. And I think with the Sun and Jupiter, it adds enthusiasm and optimism, especially emotionally. So once again, this is a great aspect to like declutter, plan, and start a new self-care habit. Now, there are some other things that are kind of going on. I think, Venus is a nice aspect. We see Venus in her domicile in Taurus. So she's at home. She is slightly sextile she is slightly sextile Mercury, and also slightly sextile the North Node and trine the South Node. So we see friendly aspects with Venus, which I think is great. And this basically means that Venus in Taurus is bringing opportunity for love, beauty, abundance. The harmonization with the nodes, I really feel like, is supporting our spiritual and relational growth. And this aspect that Venus is making with the nodes really encourages us to let go of perfectionism with the South Node trine, and also embrace intuitive connections with the sextile that we see to the North Node, especially in relationships and creative pursuits. However, there are some other energies here that are a little bit more challenging. And I talked about this a little bit in my video recently when I was talking about the Mars and Virgo transit. And honestly, I feel like I could have done better with my explanation. I feel like I kind of botched it a little bit. So I took some time to really kind of look at the two separate yods and create something that's a little bit more precise, I think, to better understand some of those aspects. To see a yod or a finger of fate is something that is a very unusual aspect, and it's kind of pointing to something that collectively we need to pay attention to. To be having two at the same time, okay? So we see this during the solstice. We also see this during the new moon, is, I think, pretty significant. The new moon in itself would bake this into the transits for the next 6 months. But this one is baking it into the transits for the next 3. So it's both kind of saying the same thing. And for me, I'm looking at the first yod where Mars is the focal point. So we've got Mars that is in conjunct Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and also in conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. So to have a yod, you need to have a sextile, which also has a quincunx. And this is going to creates the finger of fate, to Mars, saying, hey, this energy, it is going to be so visible. You need to utilize this, or you need to kind of bring in some of this energy, or you're going to see some of this energy out in the world. So both ways, we've got some heavy hitters that are the focal point. The first one is Mars in Virgo. The second one is going to be Pluto in Aquarius. Just in a nutshell, Mars and Pluto correlate with Scorpio. What is Scorpio about? Change, transformation, shedding old skin, dealing with crisis, moving through crisis, and ultimately healing and rising above something. So when we look at the first yod, where Mars and Virgo is the focal point between Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune, this basically means that we are going to be kind of highlighting, the need to look at fated scenarios and situations that take place over the next 3 months. And this fated energy is going to be in alignment with Mars and Virgo's focus. So it's a call to really, I think, realign your daily actions in many ways with Pluto. So it's going to be about transformation and also incorporating more of an inspired vision with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So many of you guys might feel pushed to refine your routines, your work habits, or to serve a bigger purpose. And this is about staying flexible and trusting the process. To make it quite literal, and I think more so relatable, Mars is also very much tied to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And, the first house, or Aries, is literally about like life, and it's about rising, and it's about the first thing you do in the morning. It's also going to be about the vibe that you kind of set, or the intentions that you set first thing in the morning, and like the vision that you have for yourself and the vision that you have for the day. So looking at Mars ruling Saturn and Neptune and in conjunct in quincunx, it's saying you can dream about it, you can envision it, you can worship this ideal version of yourself, or just hope that you could become something, but nothing is going to happen unless you actually take action, unless you roll up your sleeves, do the nitty-gritty work, and like get serious about having a routine. So something I'm going to be doing, I think, with this solstice is going to be like me being like, all right, I've got something that I do every single day. Obviously, it's going to be different for everybody's chart. To be able to really see that come together the way that I want it to come together in a physical way. Mars in Virgo is things like looking for jobs, getting organized, getting clean, checking off your to-do list, going back to the gym, focusing on your health and your habits, and getting something done. And rather than dreaming about it, taking some kind of action. And then on the flip side, we've got this other yod where we've got Mars that's sextile the Sun and Jupiter during the solstice, and it's in conjunct in quincunx Pluto. So it's basically saying, okay, now we've got this major change in transformation, Pluto retrograde, which is really highlighting the change that's happening collectively, that's happening in regards to the future. I feel like this is kind of saying the future is not defined. And this is really highlighting themes of transformative power. So it's maybe asking you to kind of let go of old structures. Maybe it's about innovating change, especially in how you connect with others, maybe in your community. And the Sun Jupiter encourages emotional change while Mars pushes for practical adjustments. So this might mean that, hey, we have to take some kind of action when it comes to our schedule and also when it comes to our emotions. And, maybe there is like a sense of needing to kind of get back down to basics. Maybe we do need to be focusing more on family gatherings, social gatherings, like what we can do to kind of help other people. Maybe that can get us out of like what feels like a little bit of like a social funk. Maybe it means that we can feel closer to people who are neighbors, friends, family members, things like that. And rather than kind of playing into some of the collective trauma drama of Pluto and Aquarius, we can say, actually, we can take the necessary steps to help other people, to help create shelter, to help be of service, and to kind of help neutralize some of the crisis that's kind of going on in the world. So we can be of service to other people. Something else that I noticed also is that we have Uranus at 29 degrees. We won't see until July that Uranus will move into Gemini, and it'll briefly be there for a couple of months. But it's interesting that we see Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, the Moon, Sun, Jupiter, Mars, everything's in early degrees. So it's like, okay, we're just getting started. We're doing this new thing. But Uranus is like, hold my beer. It's like, hold on, there's about to be something wild that's going to kind of happen here. Positive is that, the ruler, the dispositor of Uranus is Venus, which is in its domicile. Venus is also tied to the moon. So it is saying there is likely going to be some major kind of pivots or like turning points with Uranus being at a critical 29 degrees. So I'm expecting some unexpected breakthroughs in stability and resources. And this could also mean like, your personal self-esteem, your personal resources, maybe your personal preferences when it comes to food, money, scents, all kinds of stuff that are Taurus related. And also a pretty critical turning point when it comes to the financial system. Now, what's interesting is that this is in a sextile to Saturn and Neptune. Obviously, it's out of sign. You can't quite see it, but it is sextiling Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So I think with that, it's supporting inspired changes that blend practicality with vision. So maybe, be open to sudden insights about your finances and values. Maybe this means that you're getting a little bit more serious when it comes to the necessary changes that you need to make. Maybe your personal values are shifting a little bit. Maybe your budget's changing. Maybe your style's changing. And your relationship to things. And that's so interesting when we see, the moon square Pluto. It might mean that we're saying, hey, we want less things. We need less things. Also seeing Uranus at 29 degrees, some people might be kind of rejecting the idea of like materialism, focusing more on, a shift in values and investing in long-term growth and security. So a lot of people being like, actually, maybe it makes sense to save money for a house, or maybe I do want to be buying, long-lasting quality furniture. Maybe I am thinking about, buying land. Maybe I am planting a garden for the future. There is going to be a lot of people kind of shifting their goals and what they're kind of feeling like they want to invest their time and their energy into. So in a nutshell, right, when I put this all together, because this is going to be from June of 2025 to about September of 2025, the next 90 days, collectively, I think that we're going to see themes like nurturing our communities, which I think is really wonderful. All this like Taurus and Cancer energy is like very yummy. The Sun-Jupiter conjunction and Cancer's influence is really emphasizing creating safe and also inclusive spaces. So communities are going to prioritize emotional connection. This might be like local gatherings or, food drives. This could be helping the homeless. This could also be about supporting families, and especially in physical, home, or financial or emotional ways. These are going to be themes that you're going to be seeing for the next couple of months. This is also about balancing, I think, tradition with progress. The squares to Saturn and Neptune, and also some of the aspects that we're seeing to Pluto, it highlights tension between preserving cultural roots, very Cancer, and embracing innovation. And I feel like this could spark debates over identity, resources, societal change, all of these things. And I think a lot of this is going to be connected to culture and roots, because Jupiter in Cancer, it's basically like, I love where I am. I love where I come from. I love my heritage. I love my family. I love my country, whatever. And some of the squares that you're seeing to Saturn and Neptune and Aries is like people going like, well, do I resonate with that? Do I agree with that? Is that my vision? Do I want to embark on some like new thing? Do I want to go somewhere new? And you guys will see when I read you the Sabian symbol in a second what I mean. We're also going to see practical transformation, quite literal with Mars and Pluto aspects. I think, thank Goddess for Mars and Virgo to kind of help keep us grounded the next couple of months. But with Pluto and Mars being focal points of those yods, we're definitely going to see a collective focus on action and change. So we might see more themes revolving around sustainable systems, definitely healthcare reform, and community-driven solutions. Basically, taking small steps can lead to big shifts within a couple months' time. Focusing on emotional and spiritual healing is also the name of the game, especially with Mercury's trine to the North Node in Pisces. This could be huge for mental health support, family support, anything in regards to healing ancestral trauma, being able to kind of better communicate our feelings. And it's really going to be encouraging collective compassion, creativity, as well as spiritual growth. So we'll see a huge emphasis on art, music, and empathy. That is likely going to be uniting people. And finally, we're going to see major resource redefinition. We can see that with Uranus at 29 degrees. We can see that with the Moon in Taurus, square Pluto in Aquarius. This is really shifting how societies value resources. And I expect conversations about sustainability, wealth distribution, and environmental innovation to be major headlines for the next couple of months. Now, let me read you guys the Sabian symbol before I forget and get to the end of this video. But the Sabian symbol I'm going to read for you guys is 1 degree of Cancer because the solstice is at 0. So we're going to round up, and this is going to give us a furled and unfurled flag displayed from a vessel. I think it's furled or furled. Sorry, it's probably furled. The theme here is, the keyword is adaptability, and the theme is decision. So the symbol speaks to a dramatic change of heart and a realignment, a turning point in life. The image of a furled and an unfurled flag displayed from a vessel alludes to a change in authority or transfer of allegiance. The indication here is that the vessel, which can also symbolize the individual, is about to sail under a new flag or align itself with a new or different cause. The suggestion of this image is that nothing is irrevocable, and that if an individual discovers that he has been untrue to himself or his commitments, or if he finds that he can make no further progress towards achieving his ultimate goal or purpose, then is justified in changing his loyalties. On a practical level, this degree can indicate a change in political parties, group affiliation, lifestyle, or even citizenship. At its highest, the symbol represents flexibility and willingness to risk temporary upsets or endure the hardships associated with any extreme change or order to maintain self-integrity. Watch for indecisiveness or spinelessness or irresponsibility. The accent is on a major change of commitment or realignment. The realization that you have outgrown some experience or that your objectives are better served elsewhere may cause you to close the door on something in your life or take a different path. Your greatest advantage lies in recognizing when change is your best interest and having the courage to make it. Guard against being afraid to let go of the familiar or feeling that others will be upset with you if you leave. You don't have to go down with the ship or sacrifice yourself just to please others. Stepping stones are change of allegiance, loyalty, transition, adaptability, flexibility, compromise, and indecision. So interesting that it talks about a vessel changing its flag, basically going from one flag to flying another flag. I think a lot of this is going to be about cultures and particular countries and their allegiance or their affiliation with their home culture, okay? Any country, it doesn't matter if it's the United States, if it's Mexico, Canada, parts of Europe, Australia, whatever. And the squares that we're seeing to Saturn and Neptune is going to be like, are some of these changes that are happening, like, can we actually on an individual level, Aries, on a personal level, can we get down with that? Do we share that vision, right? I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's like from the stuff that you're seeing in the United States where they're like, you can't fly certain flags in the Capitol buildings, or, now we're seeing like kind of changes that are going on with like alliances and stuff internationally, and like whether or not there is going to be a promotion of, flying the flags of those who, are our partners or our, what's the word that I'm looking for? I guess, allies, or if there is going to be stern and serious, new leadership. Aries is something new that's being ushered in, where it's kind of going like, no, we're going to dissolve that. Like, that's not what we worship any longer. That's not what we believe in. And Capricorn is very much associated with Saturn. So when I look at Saturn in any sign, I'm going to be like leaderships, government, anything revolving around like top-down structures. And this is, I think, where individuals are becoming disillusioned with this merger of culture and politics. And when I say culture, it could be, current culture that's going on out in the world. It could be culture in an ethnic sense. It could be culture in a religious sense. Certainly Neptune is definitely about religion. And where a lot of people are kind of like, why are we allowing all of these things to like blend into politics? And like, why are we allowing ourselves to get thrown into what can quite literally be holy wars, Neptune in Aries, and allow that to kind of like create confusion for individuals about which side they're on, right? Because that's kind of what's happening. It's like everybody's got to pick sides, and individuals are getting angry and they're getting confused, Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, about, well, where is home? And like, what flag should we be flying? And like, what should we be believing in? And like, where are our roots or our culture? And I know some people are going to get upset by this. This is just me kind of like spitballing, just looking at the astrology. But I think herein lies the issue, is the square. That a lot of people are like, well, this is what we've done in the past and this is what we've always done. So, should we continue to just keep doing it? Some people are going to go, no, it's time to wake up and kind of come out of these fever dreams, Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, and recognize and realize how we got here or where we came from. Getting to the root of the issue is very much kind of Cancer. So I think that you're going to see the tension, which has been brewing for the last several weeks, kind of continue for about 3 months. I think that what's positive is that at least Mars is trine the moon. That's like, regardless of what it is that you believe in, we still have to make sure that we take care of other people. We do right by other people. Mars in Virgo is 8. This is like, first responders. This is going to be nurses. This is going to be people in the military. This is going to be those who are like going in and providing food and resources and support and shelter. So I do feel like we might actually see some positive things that are kind of coming from this. Not as thrilled about Mars in conjunct or quincunx Saturn and Neptune. It does tell me that we're probably going to see some people who are going to break ranks. And I don't know if that's quite literally in like military, maybe. But it could also be people who are like breaking away from their job or feeling like it's not something they're meant to do any longer. Once again, changing flags, right? As it said, the accent is on making major change and commitment in a realignment. So if you're realizing that you've outgrown something, job, relationship, hometown, whatever, like there is this sense of being like, okay, it's time for you to close that door and take a different path. And for many of us, it's kind of like, how's it going to go? What's going to happen? How is this going to work out? I would say be optimistic. Take one small step every day for the next 90 days towards your goal. I think you're going to see a lot of things are going to change, and it's going to go in a positive way, which could bring lots of physical changes, but also financial changes, emotional changes, spiritual changes, all of that stuff. And I just kind of feel like for many of us, this is the call for action. I kept telling you guys, once we get to June of 2025, the astrology is completely different. We're not dealing with some of the confusion that we have had with all these placements in Pisces. We're not dealing with some of the stickiness that we have had also with some of the squares and the retrogrades, which really consumed a lot of the first half of this year. Now we're focusing on joining community efforts that feel like home, and whether that's like volunteering or supporting local causes or advocating for change. This is really about, for the next several months, staying open to new ideas, but also honoring your roots in the process. Maybe use Cancer's energy to kind of build bridges, not walls, and take small practical steps to contribute to a better world. So whether you're thinking about planting a garden, joining a cause, or simply listening to others, your efforts will ripple out to the collective. So we want to make this a season of heart-centered growth and transformation. So I think to really make the most of the next couple of months, it's going to be about embracing change. Obviously, the Sun and Jupiter create this very warm, kind of optimistic vibe, and really it's encouraging us to build emotional security and dream big about what feels like home. What you want to be mindful of is those squares to Saturn and some of the aspects that you're going to see to Pluto. I think it's going to be some harsh reality checks that growth comes with challenges. It's not going to come easy. It's going to require a lot of faith, but it's also going to require a need to be open to making radical change, and also kind of keeping our head on straight and staying grounded with some of the squares that we see to Saturn and Neptune. Those yods are really pointing to like a fated time of transformation, where some of these small kind of practical steps with Mars and Virgo can really help us make bold changes in the future with Pluto and Aquarius. So I'm expecting a mix of kind of cozy, heart-centered moments, But maybe the more that we're tuning into that intuition, the more that we're tuning into what's going on with our emotions, our home, our family, we see, you know what, our priorities are changing. We're getting grounded. There's some dynamic shifts that are really pushing us out of our comfort zone. And this is going to be a season that's all about balancing self-care with purposeful action. So trust your intuition and create a life that feels like home. To best work with this energy on the 20th in the evening or on the 21st at any point during the day, this is when I recommend doing something revolving around setting intentions connected to the solstice. This means that we're going to be embracing emotional expansion. So we use that Sun Jupiter, to dream big about your emotional and creative goals. I think the Taurus, Moon, and Venus will help you stay grounded. Take those necessary small steps forward. So think like routines, self-care, maybe practicing decluttering your space or anything just to feel more organized and centered. We want to keep in mind that there is going to be some challenges over the next couple of months, but I feel like we can kind of lean into it with ease. But some of the aspects that we're going to see does bring tension or power struggles. So we want to approach them with patience and willingness to release what no longer serves us. And obviously, meditate, journal, use some form of divination. Mercury trine the North Node is all about that connection to our intuition and really listening to what the spirit has to say and listening to our inner voice before we make any big changes. But be open to change because the odds, as well as Uranus at 29 degrees, is really signaling there are some big unexpected shifts that are coming. So embrace these opportunities to align with your purpose. And I would recommend as a ritual for the summer solstice, just create a sacred space, right? So you can create a sacred space by finding a quiet spot in your home or in nature, even on your patio or in your yard. You could do this by, a body of water, or you can do this in a cozy little spot at home. I would say Cancer is a water sign. So you want to incorporate water some way or another, whether you're going to be by a fountain or a lake or a beach. Maybe you have like a fountain or a body of water near your home. You can even take a bath if that's something that you want to do to kind of celebrate the solstice. And something that's also going to be comforting and kind of cozy. So it could be like, oh, I have a cup of tea and a blanket. I'm sitting down and writing down my intentions because we want to work with both the Taurus as well as the Cancer energy. Also, something else I would say is that, because this is a time where we are really kind of bringing in the light, definitely lights are going to be positive for your ritual. So, candles or even like a bonfire or anything that's going to be kind of connected to light would be good. I usually like to light a white and a silver candle because silver is connected to Cancer. And I feel like this is a good way to kind of balance that like sun and moon energy. Some people like to use just two candles. So you can never go wrong with using a white candle. Sometimes people like to use a white and a black candle, whatever you prefer, but ideally you have two. And then also I would prefer to use Cancer inspired items. So for like herbs, I would use chamomile because I feel like it's very comforting and nurturing. It's also really nice with some of the aspects that we see to Mars because believe it or not, chamomile has ties to Mars. I also would really recommend using like lavender because I think that's really good for like peaceful or anything that's kind of therapeutic or healing. You guys can use essential oils like rose or sandalwood because this is really good for emotional connection and love. Rose is really great for the aspects in Taurus. Sandalwood is amazing. I love to use sandalwood for anything Cancer related. I'll put it in baths. I'll put it on candles. I'll burn some of it on an incense stick. And then for crystals, to amplify energy, you can't go wrong with clear quartz. I also really like moonstone for intuition. I also really like selenite for kind of cleansing and purifying properties. You guys can definitely use rose quartz. The moon is in Taurus. Venus is in Taurus. So if you want to use any abundance herbs or any abundance crystals or anything that's associated with like Taurus, you can do that as well. And I would at least have a small chalice or like a bowl of water to represent Cancer's energy. So something simple to kind of bring in all of the elements is you could have, a chalice full of water. You can have a couple of crystals or like a small plant. You can have a little bit of incense, and then you can have like a small candle. So you have all of the elements that are kind of coming in that's, balancing everything together. And to set your intentions, what you want to do ideally is, get your stuff in order, sit down, get comfortable, meditate, get in your quiet spot, and then write your intentions down. And I would say them out loud. So, say something like, I honor the light within me. I'm setting the intention to nurture my heart, maybe to nurture my home or my soul, and visualize that intention glowing, right? And you want to see it kind of coming into fruition. You can sprinkle some of your herbs or oils, on top of a candle. Just be careful with stuff that can be flammable. You can also put herbs or you can put oil into your bowl or your chalice. And as you're doing that, you can be like, I'm inviting in peace, I'm inviting in healing, I'm inviting in light, I'm inviting in emotional security, because that chalice, that water is going to be bringing that intention and it's going to be holding that energy like Cancer. I think this is really great. Visualization exercises would be really great during the solstice because of that Saturn and Neptune energy. That's like, you have to see it. You have to believe it. You have to imagine it. You have to enchant it. It's not just going to happen on its own. So it is kind of encouraging you to do some of that stuff and definitely work with like herbs, crystals, or fire because of some of the aspects that you see with Mars in Virgo. If you guys want, you can meditate or journal, spend a few minutes kind of doing on that, reflecting on, like I said, what makes you feel safe or nurtured, and journal about your intentions. And you can also kind of just like focus on the candle's flame, maybe take a note of something that you kind of feel like you see or some like visions or vibes that you get looking at that. And then obviously close space. Okay. So when I say close space, when you open space, when you sit down to burn a candle, pull a couple tarot cards, set your intentions, you want to ground your energy and you also want to protect your space. So some people like to do a prayer. Other people just like to, call on an archangel, or maybe like to call on their guides, or they like to do something where they envision kind of having that space. Well, when you're done, you want to close your space. So close the ritual by maybe, thanking the moon, or maybe you want to be, thanking Jupiter. Maybe you want to be thanking Venus. I would kind of stick more to Sun, Jupiter, Moon personally, but because there is a connection and a correlation between the Moon and Jupiter and Venus, you can kind of work with all of those energies, whether you're going to be carving them into a candle or you're working with planetary sigils or symbols. And I would also say just keep your stuff out for a couple of days, at least through the new moon, which we're going to see on the 25th. So leave that altar space that you kind of set up for a little bit and do the ritual on either the 20th or the 21st. The official solstice is going to be around 9:42 p.m. Central Time. So that's going to be around 7:42 p.m. Pacific. That's going to be around 10:42 p.m. Eastern Time on June 20th. So you could do it at night, or you could do it first thing in the morning when you kind of wake up on the 21st at sunrise, or you could even do it midday to kind of honor the solstice's peak light. So you've got a couple different days that you could do that. But regardless of what you do, make it personal, make it your own. You can add photos if you want, or little items that maybe feel like are symbolic of home for your solstice altar space. And I would also say revisit this ritual during the new moon. So you can do this around the 25th when you have a new moon in Cancer. You could do this around the full moon that we're going to have in Cancer also down the road. Okay? All right, that'll be the beginning of 2025. So that's my thought for how to make the most of the next 3 months. Personally, I'm quite satisfied, I think, with this chart, and I'm very optimistic about the next 3 months. I feel like this is the time. If you feel like you haven't gotten the show on the road with getting things in order, this is the time that you definitely want to do that. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you guys enjoy your sun ingress into Cancer. I know that this is like a big changing time, but I feel like the next 3 months are going to feel like a major hug, right, from the universe. Obviously, there's going to be some exciting changes in there. So lean into self-care, trust your intuition, take the necessary practical steps forward to see some of these manifestations become real. Definitely try the ritual, share your own. If you guys want, set your intentions and let me know maybe in the comment section what you're hoping to achieve and maybe how you're celebrating the solstice. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click the bell button for more cosmic insights. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And I hope you guys enjoy this week, and I'll catch you back here on Thursday with July horoscopes. If you want to see more about me and my work, including my webinars, courses, or some of my personalized astrology transit calendars, click the link below, head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter so you're on the up and up when I have new courses coming out. And while you're there, you can also consider booking a reading with me. I'm taking new clients in September of 2025. All right, guys, that's it for me. I'll see you all very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. You guys take care.